So today we're going to talk about simple random samples. Yesterday we talked about a couple sample methods, voluntary response sample and convenience sampling, which both had biases present. So to recap that before we go on, when you have voluntary response, the bias that can happen with that is that people are volunteering their response because they're passionate about it. Passionate views tend to be negative, so that means that you get a more negative view on whatever that topic might be, just because those are the people volunteering their responses. Then we had convenience sampling. You guys have probably engaged in some convenience sampling in this course, which is fine because that's what we needed to do for our projects before this. But we're going to talk about how to design a simple random sample today instead. The issue with a convenience sample, because we're going to be talking about the biases today, but the issue with a convenience sample is that only parts of the population are actually getting sampled. So right now, I'm going to get into this example when we get done with our lesson. Before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and click onto the notes. And let's talk about a couple things that we see within the notes, and I'm going to use that just basically to guide what I'm doing. So what we're going to do today is we're going to set up a simple random sample. We're going to find out that these SRSs, as I will call them moving forward, simple random samples. The simple random samples means that every single individual in a population has an equal chance of being selected. So you can see that that's different than a convenient sample because people, when you guys were volunteering or you were going to take a sample, not all of the population is included. But here, a simple random sample, every single person has an equal chance of being selected, and then there's some way that you randomize that. That's where the random comes in. So the way that we can do this, we can actually draw names from a hat or draw numbers from a hat or a box or whatever you want to say from there. But it's that concept of drawing randomly where everybody in the population would be in that pool and then you would draw from there. So another way to do it is computer software. Obviously, when we are talking about the entire United States population and you want to do some kind of simple random sample, then computer software would probably do some kind of random digit dialing to get their sample. But that's another example of a simple random sample. What we're going to be using is what's called the table of random digits. We're going to use the table of random digits, and that's because I can assign a row of the table of random digits, which, by the way, the table is completely random. It's made up of numbers from 0 to 9, so 10 different numbers, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So it has 10 different numbers, and every single digit is completely random. So each entry actually has 0 through 9 has an equal chance of being selected, but I want you to understand that it is completely random. The entries are independent of each other. Knowing one part of the table of random digits obviously makes it so that way we don't know any other parts. They're completely random. So that's going to be what we use in here primarily. You can also use your calculator, but we're going to kind of stay away from that for this class. Okay, so the process, I'm going to talk about a 4-step process, and the first part is to always label your population. So I might have, I want to do a sample of your class, and I would probably first alphabetize you and then assign you each a number. So I would assign each numerical value to the individual. So I would number you guys 1 through 37. That's the first part, labeling. Then you go to your table. You go to your table and you read the table and identify different numbers. And I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute. And then you stop when you indicate how many. Like if I wanted to sample 5 of you guys, I would go to the table. I would take chunks of 2, which I'll show you in a second. And then I would stop when I get 5 of you. At the very end, the last step is to identify who I'm going to sample. So that's where I would write your names down, the 5 that were selected. Okay, I have an example here, but I'm going to actually pop over and show you how I would do it on the table of random digits. So within your materials, you guys have the table of random digits that you're going to be using for your homework. It's right here. It's this, the toolbar under lesson 4. This is the table of random digits. Okay. So I might say go to line 105 and select out of those 37 people in my class, I am going to select 5 of you. What I would do is I would start at line 105, and this would be so that all of us would get the same sample, and I would know that you guys were doing it correctly. And since I'm numbering you guys 0, 1, because I have to have a placeholder there, the 0 in front shows me that I'm going to have 2 digits that I'm drawing each time. 0, 1 through 37, I'm going to take these in 2-digit chunks. Okay, because there are 37. Let me make it clear, if there were 120 of you guys, like maybe I'm sampling all stats classes and I have 120 students, I would number 0, 0, 1 through 120. So I do want to make that clear that I would then be taking it in 3-digit chunks. That's why I would do 0, 0, 1. Okay, so now I come here and I would go, okay, 95 are my first 2 numbers. Nope, that's not in my number set of 0 to 37. Then I would do 59. Nope. 29. No. 40. No. 07. Yes. Person 07, who was whoever had that number 07, would be my first person. Then I keep going. I've only identified 1. 69, no. 97, no. 19, yes. So I've got my second person, whoever was 19th on the list. Then I have 14, yes, there's my third person. 81, no. 60, no. 77, no. 95, no. 37, oh, yep, 37, because we went to 37 in this class. So 37, yes, there's my fourth person. 91, no. 17, there we go. There is my fifth person. So I would then identify those people, and that would be the last step of how to do my sample. So that's an example of how we do that. Okay, a couple other sample designs. Simple random sample is going to be the best design that we use, but you can stratify a sample. And we'll get more into stratifying a sample later on, but please understand that it's actually just a simple random sample where you have stratums first. So for example, in our class, if I wanted to get 5 males and 5 females, 5 males, 5 females, to stratify something is to break it apart. Okay, so I want 5 males, 5 females. Well, now I only have, 17 females and 20 males in the class. So I would first stratify it into those groups, and then I would select 5 in each of the groups. So it's still a simple random sample. It's just that first you break them into whatever group you care about. Okay. And I'm not going to talk about cluster samples right now. That'll be something that we talk about later when I compare these two, but stratified sample you will see from time to time. The last thing that I want to talk about are biases. So biases are definitely present in samples. And so here are the 4 different biases that we're going to talk about. Under coverage is where parts of the population are left out. I've actually said that in this lesson. Under coverage is the name for the bias that happens when you do a convenience sample. Okay, so there are lots of samples that miss parts of the population. In fact, if we do US households, we still miss people. We miss people that are in dorms, we miss prison inmates, and homeless. Those are all people who are left out of the population. So that is known as under coverage. Non-response is exactly what you would think. It means you do not respond. This happens a lot with surveys. With surveys, I might get a survey in the mail and I don't respond because I don't want to take the time to do that. That's a non-response bias. Also with non-response, like if people are calling telemarketers, we have caller ID now, so it's easy for us to not respond. Bias is present there because typically people who are too busy to respond won't respond, and they might differ in some way to the real population. Then there's response bias. So response bias is where the interviewer might cause some kind of bias unknowingly. For example, if a teacher asked a question of you that you didn't feel appropriate to answer, you might lie about it. Whereas maybe your friend asked and you have a different answer. So response bias happens a lot, especially if you're asked about illegal or unpopular behavior, then response bias can just naturally play a part in that. Wording of a question is the last one. Sometimes the wording of a question can be super confusing, and that can lead to some biases, like maybe people don't understand the question or they feel like it's too technically worded. Then that would also play into some kind of bias. And obviously, if if that happens, then maybe the estimates of the population might not be may not be good because of the biases present. Okay, so that is the notes for today. You're going to primarily focus on this simple random sample idea and designing simple random samples, and then you'll get more into biases later. But those are the notes for today. Pop over to the example video, and I will do the example of the one that I have below.